in that locker room anymore. And so they decided here just ahead of an all-star game in Atlanta.
Yo, listen. That's the voice of power right there, man. Power 40 under 40 it list for Johnson Media. And before that, she was the top 30 under 30 AUC magazine. She's here with us today. Come on, host, reporter, actress, writer, sports anchor for ESPN, and mom, the one and only Elle Duncan is here. Elle Duncan.
Hey, Elle.
Hey, y'all. How you doing?
Hey, Elle. How you doing?
Yes. I'm doing, man. I have 2 kids now.
Yeah.
And I am doing well if I get a shower before noon. And so I'm just living that life at this point, y'all. Just making it. I live with a domestic terrorist who's 2 years old. So this is a nice retreat. I get to go downstairs and talk with y'all, and this is great.
Okay, so the babies are upstairs while you're downstairs, right?
Correct. Hiding. Yes.
Yeah. Well, welcome back. I know you came back to ESPN. It must feel great, to be back at work, right? How does that feel? How was your first day?
It was good. It was time. I think that, a lot of mothers and fathers too, but especially mothers sort of feel a lot of anxiety and hesitancy about coming back to work once they've had a baby. But I knew it was time when my husband sort of called me out on my attire, and I had ordered something online, and I was like, isn't this an adorable sort of activewear set? And he was like, babe, that is pajamas. And I was like, no, it's not pajamas. He was like, that is a matching pajama set. So I have been buying pajamas and wearing them out in public. And at that point, I was like, it's time to be a grown-up again, put on real clothes and go back to work. So it was good, a lot of anxiety, but I feel good after getting sort of the first one out of the way.
Well, it's an honor to have you on the show. You guys follow her at Elle Duncan. You can check her out at 6 p.m. Eastern edition of Sports Center on ESPN. HB, I know you want to talk sports with Elle. Let's get to it.
I do want to talk sports with Elle, and I love the fact that the clip that we have actually speaks of the Atlanta Hawks and actually with the head coach changing that's going on right now. So Nate McMillan is now, subbing in as coach, but Atlanta has a game tonight. They're taking on the Miami Heat. What you think is going to happen, Elle, with this game tonight with everything that's going on? You think the Hawks will win?
I mean, honestly, with what's been happening to the Hawks through the month of February, probably not. It's really tough because Lloyd Pierce was fired, and it felt like it was not his fault. And I know that sounds crazy because you just played the clip and I said his record. But the problem is when the Hawks hired him, y'all, they had a young team filled with kids. And he was a first-time coach. And they felt like a young, sort of fresh perspective would work well with kids. Well, this offseason, they just went and paid a whole bunch of veterans, right? Like Rajon Rondo is not a kid. And so his voice and sort of his ability to resonate with the team completely changed. So now he's trying to coach a team that he was not built to coach. They hired Nate McMillan in the offseason sort of knowing that Lloyd Pierce was on the hot seat. So they have a great respect. Nate actually checked with Lloyd Pierce to make sure it was okay that he took over as interim head coach. Nate McMillan obviously has a great track record as a head coach. Mm-hmm. With Indiana. We'll see. I'm never very confident when it comes to Atlanta teams, and you all know why if you watch any Atlanta sports.
Wow.
But I think it doesn't, despite the fact that it didn't work out for him on the court, I think we would be remiss to not mention the impact Lloyd Pierce had on the selection, on voter suppression, on the city of Atlanta, because Lloyd Pierce was instrumental in securing State Farm Arena as a voting site. And after they did that, the rest of the sports world took notice and they started opening up their arenas and stadiums to voting. And we were able to see sort of, record amounts of people vote. So I think that no matter what happens in terms of his career, he can always rest assured that he made a huge impact in this country.
Very, very well said. So don't forget the Hawks tonight taking on the Heat along with 5 other games on schedule. Sirius Channel 215 will be covering these games live. I want to go back, though, Elle, to last night. Sway and I have an ongoing battle going on. And let's be clear, Elle, Sway is not faithful. He has a main team because he's from the Bay. So the Golden State Warriors, that's his main shorty. That's wifey. Then he has a side chick, which are called the Brooklyn Nets, because he's a season ticket holder now once he moved to New York to do the shows and MTV and everything like that. So my team, Elle, San Antonio Spurs. Last night, the Brooklyn Nets took on the San Antonio Spurs. The game went to overtime, and damn it, Elle, the Brooklyn Nets ended up winning 124-113 in overtime. James Harden on fire. He dropped 30. And it's interesting that Kyrie Irving just made the statement that people just have to start getting used to James Harden and what he's going to be able to do. It's crazy, huh?
Yeah, HB. I wish that I felt like I saw this coming, because I saw this stat yesterday and thought it was crazy. You might know this as a Spurs fan. The Nets had not won in San Antonio since 2002.
I know.
It felt, right? 19 years since they had won down there. Listen, the fact of the matter is that the Spurs are certainly in rebuild mode, if you will, and they took one of the best teams in the NBA, right down to the wire, despite the fact they were missing Kevin Durant. James Harden, I think, has 7 triple-doubles now with the Nets.
Yeah.
Like, he's if he can control his ability to turn the ball over, and him and Kyrie can continue to sort of have the back and forth that they're having now, where Kyrie is being very deferential in terms of letting him, be the ball handler. Once they get Kevin Durant back, it's so crazy to me, Sway, too. Like, when you think about it, like, basketball in New York is back. You have the Nets and you have the Knicks.
Yes.
Like, how improbable is it that the Knicks are good in March? That's bananas, right?
I love it. Hey, Elle, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Because I am from Oakland. I am a Golden State Warriors fan. And, I took offense to people feeling like the Warriors had stacked the deck and created a super team because Kevin Durant went over there. I argue often when Mark Jackson was assembling this team, people didn't know who Clay was. They didn't know who Draymond Green was. They may have known Steph Curry, but it wasn't a super team. It was a great team that had perfect chemistry, and then they went on to become who they became. When Kevin Durant came, okay, may have been a super team. But prior to that, do you think it was a super team?
Oh, no. No, I mean, no. It was the true purest definition of incredible drafting, because to your point, none of those guys were highly touted. They were named somewhat. Steph Curry made a little name for himself in the tournament. Upstart Davison, sort of, I think they made it to the Sweet 16 that year, but nobody really knew him as anything but Dell's son. And Draymond, same. Like, he had even more prominence because he was coming from a big school at Michigan State. But Clay, like, unless you were sort of a inside college basketball fan, you didn't really know these guys, and they had the perfect storm of really understanding complementary basketball and bringing all those guys in together. You think about it, like, you got to give credit, you go all the way back to OKC, who really essentially did the same thing that Golden State did when they had at some point Russell Westbrook, James Harden, and Kevin Durant on the same roster. They drafted those guys. Obviously KD came over from Seattle when they moved the team. They punted on it, I think, a little bit too quickly, and Golden State really saw it through. And I miss me with this idea that, like, Kevin Durant is somehow weak because he decided to join Golden State. The man had accomplished everything he wanted to accomplish personally, right? And he wanted a championship. And there's nothing wrong. People have been joining super teams since the beginning of time. Yes, the Heat hadn't won a championship the year before or 2 years before they won, but LeBron went down to Miami, and Dwayne Wade and Chris Bosh were no slouches, and no one called him weak for that. Like, so, this idea that he should just waste away in OKC and never try for a championship to appease us is ridiculous. I'm tired of hearing it, honestly.
Thank you, Elle Duncan. That's why you see we're aligned in our thoughts right here, Heather. We're aligned. Thank you, Elle. I've been saying that for years, but when you say it, it means something. It means something when Elle says it. There you go. Thank you, Elle.
Because then she's not bringing in town business and all that kind of stuff, Sway. Elle spoke professionally yet passionately without mentioning town business, so you got to love that. I got to switch over really quickly in the latest episode of, Hold My Beer when it comes to Russell Wilson. Yesterday we spoke, Elle, about Russell possibly jumping in a Saints uniform. Actually, Cam Jordan today said he can envision Russell in a Saints uniform. But today, I'm literally been watching your station, ESPN, all morning, and now this conversation is coming up, possibly Russell Wilson in a Cowboys uniform. My goodness, Elle, what are you thinking? What are your thoughts?
Wow. Well, I think that for Russell Wilson, it would be an upgrade because for some asinine reason, the Seahawks just refuse to protect this man. All he's asking for is protection. That's where the contentious sort of relationship has gotten to, because they won't protect him. He's been sacked almost 400 times in his 9 years. That's absolutely insane. And so Dallas understands the value of a very good offensive line. In fact, Dallas's O-line have pretty much dominated that space for years, even when they're bad. So I think it would work out really well for him. I guess if you're Jerry Jones, you're sort of trying to weigh, what Russ is, what he's capable of. He's 32 years old versus what you have in Dak. You don't quite know maybe what you have in Dak. At least he doesn't seem to know what he has in Dak because he won't pay the man, and he is coming off a significant injury. I think it would be great as a plug and play for sure. For Dak, you don't want to go to Seattle because, again, they've got no O-line help, and you just came off a catastrophic leg injury. But I could see it. You team him up with Ezekiel Elliott. He's got like a legitimate running game. Dallas's defense sort of started to round into form towards the end of last year, but they've got a lot of work to do as well. I still think Seattle is better positioned to win, despite the fact that their division is a lot harder. But I could definitely see Russ in a Cowboys uniform. I'm not sure that Jerry would like sort of this new persona that Russ is taking, which is one of being very vocal about, right? Like being very open and vocal about social injustice and equality. Yes. I'm not really sure that plays well for Jerry, but I could definitely see it.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing, Elle. I'm so glad you brought that up. That's crazy. I was literally thinking the same thing as this Cowboy talk started to happen this morning. And finally, Elle, we wrap up our sports every single day with a moment in sports history. And on this day, sports history, we're talking about March 2nd, going back to 1962. None of us were born, but yet we all know this story. Philadelphia center Wilt Chamberlain scored 100 points. It's the most ever by an NBA player in a single game during Warriors 169-147 win over, who else? The New York Knicks in Hershey, PA. Absolutely insane. The numbers were 36 of 63 from the field and 28 of 32 from the free throw line. It happened today, 1962, Wilt Chamberlain with those 100 points.
I absolutely love, too, looking at the videos of like Wilt playing because everyone's like running around in their hot pants and he looks like Gumby in his little short shorts in his Daisy Dukes, like so distracting. Yes. You want to be really impressed by the athletic feat, but you're like, but he's doing it in boomer shorts. Yeah, Wilt, one of the greatest of all time, man. Despite the fact the competition wasn't great, he just dominated everybody.
Dominated.
Wow. Hey, Elle, thank you. You dominated everybody, too. Give it up for Elle Duncan. I love
Thank you guys so much.
Hey, what you got coming up, Elle?
Yeah, please check me out on the Sports Center at 6 p.m. It's my new sort of gig, so with Kevin Nagandi, excited to do that. And as always, I contribute on HQ and Around the Horn on ESPN. Thank you guys so much for having me. I'm big fans of the show. And HB, I can't wait to see the reboot of The Real World. Like, that was my growing up. I loved that specific Real World. I was 11 years old when you guys premiered, and I just remember thinking you were all so grown and mature, and to find out you guys were basically all 19 and 20 years old is bananas to me. But I can't wait to see it.
Thank you. And I want to say to you before we sign off, I watch you on every single one of the shows that you participate in on Sports Center, and I admire you. Sway, we were talking about women in hip-hop and women in reality television earlier, Sway, Tracy, and I, in the show, and the fact that women are able to do what we love to do and maintain integrity physically, verbally, just social, everything. I love it. And you have always represented that. I'm so glad that I finally have opportunity to talk to you, and I can't wait until we meet one day and give each other a big hug. So thank you.
Thank you so much, sis. I agree. Thank you so much.
Hey, Elle, you a citizen, okay?
Yes, girl. It's Sway in the morning, baby.
Yes. Say it. Bye, y'all.
Have a beautiful day. That's Elle Duncan, man. Y'all make sure y'all follow her at Elle Duncan.